As you're all very well aware, I've been a professional fine artist for about 10 years now. I've done hundreds of commissions. I've painted in front of thousands of people across those 10 years. I've been on TV recently, and I've had a couple of questions come through about some of my experiences and stuff like that, and I thought, why don't I just make a one-stop video that I can just click and send to everybody instead of typing things out. These are kind of like my top 6 sort of like lessons for the last 10 years that I think are really important. They're not in a sort of hierarchical order, just a sort of numerical order. So not one is better than the other, right? But I think the first one that I think is really important is just to never be hesitant to paint for somebody you love. I think we find ourselves in a position as artists, right? We think, oh no, I'm not doing anything for anybody unless I'm getting paid. Which, you know, from a business standpoint makes sense, absolutely. One of the big lessons I've kind of come to realize just through the course of my life too, and I'll share a story with you. Years ago, my school that I used to go to had a sister school in Japan, Shizuoka Kita High School, and I had the opportunity and I went over to Japan and did school in Japan. I lived with my host family over in Japan, and I remember coming home and I graduated school a year later, and a year after that I started really heavily being in the art world, in the art business, and really starting to become a professional fine artist. And it was in that time my host father, actually from Japan, my host father reached out to me and said, Zach, oh, it's so good to see you doing so well. Oh, come and exhibit in Japan. I'll put things up for you. We'll do stuff. And like can you do a drawing? Can you do a painting of us, of me and my family? That'd be so beautiful. And for some reason, you know, I remember thinking like, I'm not gonna do that for free. How dare he sort of ask those things of me? And God, I think back on that, and obviously I was much younger, and you know, you don't appreciate the things people do for you. You're just thinking, oh, but are they just gonna do this and take advantage of me? I need to get money for this. But retrospectively, and as I've grown up and I've aged more and become more wiser, I think, you know, I should have just done something like that for free. And unfortunately now I've lost contact with him. I had to delete my old Facebook account, and now that I have a new one, I can't really find him anymore to sort of reach out again. And ever since that was many years ago, that's always stuck with me in my heart, on my mind, to be like, God, why was I just so selfish? You know, he's done a lot for me. He hosted me into his home, took me around Japan, you know, for that couple of weeks that I was there, fed me, clothed me, cared for me. And, you know, I couldn't just spend some of my time and my God-given talents and skills to create something beautiful for them to have. And that's always been on my mind, and something I deeply regret not doing. And you've probably got things in your life, in your situations, in your circumstances pop up where, you know, maybe somebody's going through a hard time, or somebody's sick, or somebody's kid's sick, or something like that, and you have the ability to create something beautiful and magical that can just be a gift onto them, and you don't do it. Man, I would really, really recommend just thinking, what can I give first? Because when you're giving first and you've been that sort of thing, you're operating from a prosperity mindset, right? I think by default, most artists operate from, you know, a poverty mindset. They're operating that, oh, everybody's out to take from me, I'm going to be taken advantage of, you know, oh, I'm a starving artist, blah, blah, blah. All these negative connotations and self-talk that they have about themselves. And so their world becomes like that, because that's what their internal dialogue is heavily like. But if you can practically just operate and consciously operate opposite to that, and be like, you know, let me gift love, let me gift my gifts onto other people, and have that expression. Obviously there's a line between gifting gifts and being taken advantage of, obviously, right? But man, just when you can, I think gift the gift of art, because it's honestly one of the greatest things we can do as human beings, is to gift that onto other people. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned through that. But coinciding with that, not being taken advantage of, I guess sort of leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is just, how you price your work, right? And this is the age-old question: how do I price this? How do I price that? In the beginning, you're not gonna know, right? Because you've never sold any works. So start by selling a work. Put something up online and say, this is $100, and see who buys it. And if somebody buys it, then great. Okay, people are buying this. My work's now $100. And this is from a commodity mindset, right? Your work is obviously invaluable, right? It's you can't put a price on that, right? Because it's you, your own individual self, your own individual soul, person, human being. Nobody can do what you do, right? So you can't put a price on that. But if you're commoditizing your art, then you're entering into a marketplace that has that commoditization, and you have to operate in that sphere of pricing and competitive and competing with other people that are also pricing their artworks. So sell your first work, and that way you're gonna know. I think after you sell some works is where you're gonna be able to gauge, okay, people are willing to spend this much, right? But don't stop there. Don't have that mindset, because that can become a very limiting factor in your mindset and your way that you think. Don't stop, okay, people are spending this much on me, so that's how much my artworks are worth. There's no advantage to being the cheapest person in the room, ever. There's absolutely no advantage, right? You get worse clients, more headaches, less sleep, and underpaid. There's just no advantage to being the cheapest. So where you can, just always price accordingly, right? And so I think a good marker is to just do the square percentage of like the canvas that you're painting on. So if it's 20 by 20, right, you times 20 by 20, you times the square. So you charge say you charge $5 a square inch, right? Or you charge like $2 a square inch, right? And the way to get that is, if your canvas is 20 by 20, so 20 inches by 20 inches, times those two together, get that number, and then times it by the square price. So you would then times it by $3, which would be times by 3, and that's how you get your pricing. I think that's always a fair pricing to do, really. Obviously I'm going to put text there so you can visually see what that means. I think that's always like, a fair thing to price things, because it's there's no point in trying to charge by the hour when you do these sorts of things, because some things, could take an hour. So what, you're going to get paid less? And some things are going to take 100 hours. So price accordingly. That's going to all encompass all that sort of thing. And that's why I think that square like $1 per square inch, charging by square inch is what's really going to be helpful in that. And that's how I charge. I think I charge like $6 a square inch, or a little bit over that, for my works. People like Jeremy Lipking or Jeremy Mann, they're like, if you back price their things, they're probably at like $84 a square inch, right, per work. But they probably don't charge like that. They're going to be charging based on gallery prices and things like that, which is a whole nother ballpark. But if you've never sold before, this is probably the best thing to do. And on the topic of selling, always charge 50% upfront, non-refundable. Always. There's no negotiation around that. If you're taking on a commission, it's always 50% upfront, non-refundable, because you're going to spend time, you're going to spend your resources, you're going to spend your money, and you can't put paint back in the tube once it's on the canvas. That's spent. It's done. And you can't rewind time to get your time back. So 50% upfront, non-refundable. That just ensures you. And if they don't like the work at the end, work with them and have this in your contract to be like, look, I'll work with you like maybe 2 or 3 iterations of the work to get it to a place where you're going to like it. And that's when they pay the rest of the 50% up. If they don't want to, just be like, okay, don't worry, we'll leave it at that, and just walk away. And just, now at least you still have that 50%, right? And I think that's always the best way to do it. If you're doing live wedding paintings, which is something that I do, I just charge 20% up front because I'm actually not doing anything until the night of. So there's nothing to do there, right? So I'll just take 20% as a deposit, and then you pay me the remainder, like the rest of the full amount, like a week or a month prior to the wedding date. And all that, the 20% is non-refundable, but you can refund the rest of it up till the very date of the wedding. I think that's just the best way to do it, and it's always worked for me. Have contracts, have stipulations, where it says, by this date or prior to this date, and I'll do 3 iterations if you're not happy. It's always good to have everything in writing, just even if it's over Instagram or like. And it's also a good filtering system too. Like if somebody's not willing to put 50% down on it, they probably weren't willing to put 100% down on it either. So know that.
Hey, Future Zach here. While I was editing this video here, I saw Art Twitter sort of blow up with their confessions and their grievances of commissioning artists and the problems that they've had from doing that. One of the major things was that they just don't hear from the artists. They don't hear updates. They don't hear where things are at. There's just a lack of communication after the money's been sent. And then when they've tried to ask for updates, they've just been hit with lots of excuses and backpedaling and all these sorts of things. Guys, I just want to say most people probably should not be taking commissions. If you're under 10 years into this, right, and you have no experience running a business, no experience running a service-based business, which is what this is, if you're taking commissions, you're providing a service at a cost to somebody else. That's what you're doing. And so you need to understand that communication is everything. It's everything, man. Do not take on anything. Do not accept any money if you're not confident that you can deliver. If you have any doubts whatsoever, say no. Just say no, because you only have one reputation. Seriously, you only have one reputation. And if you ruin it, it's gone. Nobody's going to trust you, ever. Or, you might spend the rest of your life trying to build that reputation back up. Just don't do it. If you have any doubts, don't take it. If you don't think you can do what they're asking, don't take it. That's simple, guys. It's that simple. Really is. It really, really is. If you don't think you can do it, don't take it. If you don't think you're capable of providing updates or having clear, reasonable, communicative, just back and forth with the client, don't take it. That's as simple as it gets. And if you can't do those simple things, do not take on commissions whatsoever. Keep them updated daily, weekly at the very least weekly. Just be like, hey, just letting you know, we're still on track. It doesn't need to be anything detailed. Just be like, hey, just letting you know, still on track. Everything's looking good. When I have weddings coming up, there might be a couple months where I don't talk to them because the wedding's not for like 6 months. But I'll always let them know a month out and be like, hey, what's the name? I'm still good to go. Looking forward to the wedding. Hope you're doing great. And then a day before, I message them like, can't wait for the wedding. I'll be there at this time. I'll check in. Everything's good on my end. Can't wait to see you. Like, just those little things mean everything. They mean everything.
On the topic of commissions too, create art because you love to create art. That's it, right? You're going to hear lots of people like, oh, I hate doing commissions. I hate doing these things like that, blah, blah, blah. I only want to do my things and my ideas and all these things like that. I don't really understand that perspective because I love to create and I love to paint. Whether it's my idea or somebody else's, as long as I'm painting and I'm creating, I'm stoked, man. I am just absolutely stoked. And if you don't feel that way and you just want to paint for your own stuff, you may not want to be doing commissions at all, right? That's another point too. You got to be a people person. You got to be a people person. If you're not a people person, it's going to be super tough for you, man. Even to build relationships with galleries that represent you, like they're not going to want to work with you if you're just, not sociable, right? I know there's that sort of idea that zeitgeist idea of like an artist is like this recluse, and he's just not a people person, and he's starving and alone and is just trapped in his cave. Like, that's just this idea perpetuated by Hollywood, man. That's not real. That's not real life, and it doesn't work in real life either. You've got to be sociable. You've got to have really good social skills. You've got to be able to communicate with people. You've got to be able to talk. You've got to be able to build friendships and relationships. You've got to be able to do all those things, because art and creating is a people thing, right? Because no matter what you do, if you're making something, somebody's going to view it, right? Other than yourself. I mean, if you're making stuff just to make stuff, obviously this doesn't apply to you, and just do it because you love it and you're having fun. So not everything has to be about making money. Like, you can very much get to a place where your business is making money and sometimes you're doing art. Like, you can get to those sorts of places, right? And those aren't really fun places to be, right? If you're creatively inclined. Sometimes, the money is not worth the toil, right? And sometimes you just may not be inclined to make it a business, and that's okay. I think there's a big social pressure and social ideology to then, once you have a thing, to monetize it straight away. But know that you don't have to. Not everything has to be monetized. Not everything has to have a subscription-based service. Like it doesn't have to be that way. You can just create and to bring joy to other people. Like, you can go and find so many different charity works where you can go in and paint portraits for the day of like sick kids and not be paid. But you're going to bring so much joy and beauty and creativity to these people's lives. Like, there are things you can do which can just purely be for bringing joy to other people's lives and your own life, that don't have to be monetized. Like, it doesn't have to just be that way. Like, that's a whole nother lesson. Like, you don't have to monetize art. It doesn't have to be that way. You can just create for the joy, for the pleasure of it. It doesn't have to be any other way. Just to sort of touch on this last idea, where I was kind of talking about the self-concept in the beginning, don't self-deprecate. I know it's so easy, and it's, even if you watch the TV show I was just on too, you're going to see it with all these other artists there. They're so quick to self-deprecate and to put themselves down and to just joke about themselves on their own expense. Don't do that. It's funny, and it gets a quick laugh, an easy laugh, and she's like, oh, woe is me. But realistically, do you really want to live like that? Is that the world that you want to inhabit inside of your mind? Because the things that we say about ourselves tend to become true the more you say them, because that starts to become your reality, because you start to see those things in every facet of life. You know this when you talk, when you hang out with a depressive person, your awareness is going to be about these depression sort of things. And so you're going to see the gloominess in all things. It's just your awareness. Like, where am I putting my awareness on? Do I really think that it's funny and fun to be a starving artist just because it gets jokes and a little bit of a laugh? Or do I want to just say, you know what, actually, I'm actually fully capable of painting and creating this portrait because I have the skills. I don't have to be like, oh, it's so hard and difficult to paint this, and I'm so scared and I'm so worried. You might feel that way, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But don't feel like you have to feel that way to just try and humble yourself, right? You have to be your own number one supporter. Nobody else is going to be your number one supporter except for you, because you're the only one in your life and living your life. You have to back yourself in every facet of life. You have to back yourself in art specifically, because there's going to be nobody else backing you except for yourself. Nobody else lives your life, right? You have to be your number one supporter in all facets. So talk yourself up, be like, you know what, I can create that. Yeah, that's not a problem for me. Yeah, this isn't stressful for me. I'm happy doing this. I'm really stoked to do this. I'm actually fully capable of creating this piece. That's no issue at all. I have the skills. I'm actually an expert in this field. And don't be afraid to say that, if that is what you are, right? Right? Just don't be afraid to back yourself and up yourself there. I think, especially Australians, we're so quick to cut other people down when it seems like they're getting, proficient in their area of life. We're so quick to cut them down. And we're also so quick to cut ourselves down to try and fit into the mold. Don't do that. You're going to live your life half-hearted. What is that? Nobody else is going to live your life at all for you. And these people that you're worried about thinking what they're thinking about you when you say that you're fully capable, or that you're fully confident, or that you have the skills, or that you are an expert in this field, and you're worried about them sort of being like, oh, he's a bit up themselves. Like, these people are going to die, and they're going to not care about you, and you're going to die, and everybody's going to forget about it. It's just such a cliche, right? But just only care about your internal world, because that's the only place that you live right now, is inside, internally. It's always as within, so without. It's always there. So be your number one backer, and change that internal dialogue to be like, you know what, I am confident, I am capable, I am an expert in my field, I can do these things that I say I do. You don't have to feel like you have to fit a stereotypical artist, which is like anxious and worried and self-deprecating. You don't have to do those things. It's fine if you feel that, but know that you don't have to live like that. So with that being said, that's kind of all the things that came off the top of my dome when I was thinking about those sort of life lessons. If you got something from it, let me know in the comments. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys later.